This is the Recovering Preacher's Kids podcast, where two sisters share their journey of growing up a preacher's kid and how the bumps in the road led them to the foot of the cross. And welcome back to the Recovering Preacher's Kids podcast. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but this is the last episode of the current season, New Year, New Beginnings. I mean, at some point we have to just stop because it's no longer the new year. It just is the year. Yeah. So we're kind of going to bring y'all somebody that, you can't do a list of women of the Bible and not add her. I mean, it's just, you have to add her. But I truly believe in the providence of God, and I am one of those that I believe everything happens and falls at just the right time, even if we don't understand it. And when we were listing these women out, I had no idea how they came together like this. And so we started the season with a woman named Eve, and we can all say she ushered sin into the world. I mean, I think it's fair to say that. But we're finishing the season with Mary, the mother of Jesus, who gave birth to the one who was the lamb who took away the sin of the world.
And what better time to end with Mary in a season that we're in right now of Lent,
yes,
as we're preparing for Easter, which is Jesus rose from the dead, our whole basis of our faith. So, I mean, yeah, God is good to line it
his
up.
providence. We didn't line it up that way. I mean, when we put these women on a list, we had no idea that Mary would fall during Lent, and we knew she was at the end, but there wasn't a purpose to it. But God always has purpose.
That's right.
And I see these women have taught me so much, and I'm going to be honest, if I would have studied Mary 4 weeks ago, I don't think I would have heard her the way I have right now. And so I think my heart had to be prepared to hear her story in a new way. And, I think each week we've gone through and we've kind of given a little rundown of the women of their lives, but how do you introduce Mary? How do you bring Mary, the mother of Jesus, to the podium other than, ladies and gentlemen, here is Mary, the mother of Jesus. Like, she needs no introduction. And so she's kind of littered all through the New Testament. She's in Luke, she's in Matthew, she's in Mark, she's in John, she's in Acts. But this woman walked a journey that once I spent some more time with her, I have been so shocked at what she has taught me. One of the things, we know the story of Gabriel coming to her, telling her she was going to have a baby. And then we know that they go and they have the baby in Bethlehem. And then we know that the wise men come to see him. And then we know that they circumcised him in the temple and they met Anna and Simeon. And then we know that when he was 12 years old, he got left at the temple. We know all these little moments. But one of the things that really kind of shocked me is, we're constantly told there's this phrase that Mary pondered all these things in her heart. Mm-hmm. And I recently heard someone explain it like this, that Mary's life with Jesus was like a puzzle. And as she was walking along the journey of this puzzle, she was pondering and she was putting the pieces together as she went. Mm-hmm. And they brought out how cool it was of all the people God had placed in her path, because after she found out she was pregnant with Jesus, she went to see Elizabeth, who was like a mentor to her. And then after, Jesus was born, the angels, come to the shepherds, which are like our encouragers that came along to her. And then the wise men, I said the shepherds, I meant the wise men, but they were like financial supporters. And then you had Anna and Simeon, who was like a prayer warrior and like a pastor figure to them. And her whole point was she was saying that we almost put Mary up on this pedestal that she had this fascinating journey. And yes, she was
Yeah.
chosen to be the mother of Jesus, but like we're on a fascinating journey too. And when we take the time to ponder all these things in our hearts and we start putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and we start realizing all the Elizabeths that God brings into our lives, and the shepherds and the wise men and the Annas and the Simeons and all these people, that our story matters too.
That's a good point. And that's what you made a statement that, we put Mary on a pedestal. And in fact, that is kind of what the whole conclusion for me in studying is, that that's what I've done. I've put her on a pedestal of someone that I don't want to say I should strive to be like, but in a way I need to strive to be like, because there's a lot she taught me. But lots of times when I put people on that kind of a pedestal, I give up because I know I don't measure up. And
Right.
I struggle with, well, I can't do it. If I can't do it right, I'm just not going to do it at all. And so through my study, and usually you and I talk about what we've learned, but today we didn't. So it's very interesting that a lot of the things that you just brought out that you've learned, I mean, it was like, wow, that's what I've seen this week too, as I've studied, is just the fact I didn't really realize her age at the start. Their culture was I think it brought out in her study that she probably was around 16, Okay. At 16 years old, I sure wasn't very mature of where she was, when Gabriel came to her and told her this. And, at first she was like, what? How is this going to happen? I don't understand. And, but then she was like, okay, well, I'm all in. Do as your servant, I'm here. You do whatever, I'm however you want to say that. I'm struggling for my words. But I just didn't realize how expected that she knew that there was going to be a coming Messiah. So she had to have been taught the scriptures, well, the Torah, the promise, the prophets and everything, and knew that the Messiah was going to come through a virgin. But still, I'm sitting here thinking, at 16, I would have been, hold up, wait a minute, you got the wrong person.
Look, to be someone who was 17 years old and got pregnant, like I am, please do not misunderstand. I'm not placing myself in the same shoes as Mary, but I understand the feeling of, wait a minute, what? What? Wait a minute, what? And let's not forget that she had to wait 9 months and 33 years for the promise to actually be fulfilled.
Yeah.
Okay, because she had to carry him for 9 months. And then he was 30 years old before his ministry started. And then another 3 years before he was crucified and then rose again. So
for it to all just click.
For the whole puzzle to come together for her. And don't we want the puzzle to be figured out yesterday? Like, don't come to me, God, with what you want done and I can't see the whole puzzle. And I never thought that she had to wait 9 months and 33 years to see the whole picture.
Right. Yeah,
like
no, I hadn't either.
I have no words. Like, I'm speechless when I think about that. And I'm so convicted by the fact that I want answers and I want to see it all now, and how obedient she was. And I think that the difference between me and her is she was surrendered. Like you said, she was all in.
All in.
And Lori's like a toe step in, because I can't see all that. Like, do you remember the movie Tarzan where the little elephant's like, is this water sanitary?
Yeah.
It looks questionable to me. That's me. I'm like,
Yeah.
God, are you sure this is what you want me to do? It's a little questionable. But that wasn't her. That
No.
wasn't her heart.
Yeah. I think in the scripture, was it in the scripture or just in the study, or that it brought it out that the reference to her was that she was a bondservant. So
Yes.
during the week, we had a little study on what a bondservant was, who was a servant to their master. And they, at the time that for whatever reason, the time was up, or whether it was at the end of, was it 7 years or something like
Yeah,
that?
7
They were
years.
Hebrew, they were released or whatever. But this servant, out of love, said, I do not want to leave you. I'm going to serve you for the rest of my life. And we've heard Dad talk about that and preach on that a little bit. And I kind of knew that, but then when we studied it this week, and that was the type of, I don't know, relationship she had with God and walked, that she was a bondservant, and she was like, I will do whatever you need me to do because I love you. And just like you're talking to the piranha, with I was thinking the piranhas, and then that little piranha, I'm that way. It's like, I got to know how all this is going to play out, I'm the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? And okay, this is what we're going to do if this happens, or whatever. And that was, she asked one simple question: how is this possible? And then Gabriel said, well, this is how it's going to happen. The Most High God's going to come over you, and the Holy Spirit's going to do this. And she was like, okay, let's go.
But let's not get lost on the fact that when he was 12 and they lost him, when they found him in the temple, what did Jesus say to her?
Well,
why are you freaking out? Would I not be here about my Father's business? And I had to stop in my tracks right there, because how many other places did she go before she went to the temple? And Jesus's whole thing was like, why would you have gone anywhere else?
Right?
Well, and so she was sold in and willing to be the bondservant. She was willing to be the vessel. But in the same turn, she didn't have it all together either.
Right. And
and that was like freeing to me, that even the mother of Jesus, because it even tells us that when he said that she didn't really understand what he was saying. Like, what are you talking about? And so the mother of Jesus even kind of was like, what? And so, I don't know, it made me realize, Lori, she didn't have it all together either.
Well, when I studied that part this week of when they left Jerusalem, and they were the whole day?
3 days?
3 days out or whatever. And they realized they couldn't find him, that he wasn't with who they thought was. And of course, you were like, how can you not know where your child is? Come on. I know he's 12, but how do you not know? I remembered a time that Lauren was driving. So she was in high school, and we had gone in separate cars, and we were leaving church to go, and we're going to meet up to go eat lunch. And so we separate. Okay. And we get to the location, and everybody gets out of the car, and I'm looking around. I went, where's John William? And Lauren looks at me, and he goes, he rode with you. No, he didn't ride with me. Why would I be asking where he was if he rode with us? Said he was riding with you. And she goes, he didn't come with me. When I was studying this, I was like, I can relate to her whole panic. And I'm like, are you serious? We left him at church? How did that happen? And I jump in the car and I take off. And sure enough, he's around back at the church, sitting on the steps.
Hanging out home alone.
Yeah. And I'm like, he was all alone. And he goes, you forgot me. I'm like, yes, I did. we didn't have the whole moment of like, what are you doing here? But I realized she had that exact same feeling that I did of all the things that could be wrong, of where did he go? What happened to him? She had that same feeling I did. So I could, we could relate there. And I just really never really thought of it in that sense, that I knew she was human, but she had the same human mother worries, anxieties for our children, just like we did.
And maybe that's the whole thing, is that we spend our lives thinking that we don't relate to Mary.
Yeah.
But we relate to her. This woman experienced motherhood on every level and in every experience that a mother could. Because first and foremost, she had an unplanned pregnancy. Yeah. So she, anybody who's ever had an unplanned pregnancy can relate in some way to her on that. Next, she had a husband who considered divorce. Because he was like, I can't do this, and God stepped in. Then every mother who's ever forgotten their kid or lost their kid can relate, to her. And any woman who has ever, don't forget too, that Jesus was a boy. So he would have gone to school, and then they would have picked the ones to be the priests, my mind's going blank.
The teachers,
the rabbis, the teachers. Yes. So don't lose the fact that they did not choose Jesus to be a rabbi. Okay. They sent him home because he was a carpenter. He went back home and learned from his earthly father, Joseph, a trade. So, the rabbis were like, okay, good job, Jesus, learning all this scripture. Now go back because you are not rabbi material. And so she knows what it felt like for her son to be rejected. And then she also knows what it was like for her child to be bullied, her child to be mistreated, her child to be lied about, talked about. She knows what it's like to lose a child, to watch her child die. And I think that Mary, God can just use people in such a mighty way. But I think that we have lost sight of everything this woman went through as a mother. And we hold her up on this pedestal and we're like, I can't relate to her. But my gosh, can we not relate to everything about her? I mean, this woman, just from beginning to end, and then she was also present in the upper room at Pentecost. And I'm just like, she just, her whole life story now to me, I almost feel like I could sit across the table and have coffee with her. Whereas before I would have just like fangirled from across the room.
See, like,
yeah, like I'm not worthy to talk to her. I'm not worthy to know her. And God just showed me when I was studying her that she was a woman who just chose to surrender, Lori.
Yep. And on that note, the other thing that just got me was it kept on and on about how she was flexible, that being a bondservant means you're being flexible. You're going to do. And I was like, what? I don't like to be flexible. I want definite answers. I want definite direction. I've had to learn to be a little flexible when you have 4 children. All my ducks are not in a row. That little means, what are you talking about? I don't even have ducks. I'm squirrels, and that there had to been there had to be a lot of structure, but then I had to learn to be a little bit flexible, but flexibility is not something that doesn't come easy to me. So to realize that was her, character, to be flexible and just go, okay. I don't understand this. Let me just think and consider this. And then throughout the whole study, the fact that she trusted, bottom line, she trusted God with the promises. Like you said, she had to, 30 years plus 9 months. And then actually to see, well, no, 33 years, right? As a
33
minister
years.
for 33 years and 9 months to see the whole promise be fulfilled. I just trust.
And then
Trust is not an easy thing for me. So,
and then I kind of, there's a part of me that I can easily get tripped up on what if I'm in my 32nd year? I'm in the 32nd year, but I give up.
Interesting.
And that's something that God showed me through Mary, is Mary was faithful the whole time. And again, I think that the whole losing Jesus at 12, leaving him at the temple, I think all of that shows that she wasn't perfect. So that's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But I think she was faithful the whole time.
Yes.
And she was willing, like you said, she was flexible and she was willing to be molded. And what he continues to show me through every single one of these women, and then he's rounding it up with his mom, is that, or his earthly mother, is that I don't trust his big picture.
Okay, you summed it up very well of what I was getting at on the trust. I don't trust his whole big picture. And
I don't trust the whole big picture.
No.
Because I can't see it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. I feel vulnerable, and I don't like feeling vulnerable.
No, I don't either.
And I don't think Mary would have been able to make it through her journey of life if she were not willing to be vulnerable. And I really have learned so much from her that I wasn't expecting. I think that my biggest problem is that I want to be isolated from everyone when I don't understand the whole picture. I feel comfortable talking to other people and talking to people when I see the whole picture. But when I don't see it all, I would rather just isolate. And I see that I don't think Mary did that. It wasn't their culture to isolate, first of all.
But community was a big thing.
And I struggle with community. That's a huge issue, which goes back to trust and trauma. And welcome to the Recovering Preachers Kids. We have a whole podcast about it. But I don't know. I just, Mary, I think that I don't want to say, oh, she was a cool woman, but I don't know. To me now, I'm just kind of like, she was cool.
I mean, this brought her to life. And when we made the list of the women, we were like, well, we can't talk about any of the women and not talk about Mary.
About her.
It was just like, everybody's going to know about Mary. Everybody knows that. But when we deep dived into her and studied this week, it was just like she actually came to life. And I know this sounds crazy. She's an actual person.
Exactly.
Who actually had same questions, who dealt with the same emotions. Who, like, I'm glad you brought that out about saw her child be bullied, be left out, because I was like, I had never thought about that like that. She knows exactly how you feel when your child's left out or talked about or misunderstood or words twisted. She understood, and like, she became a real person. And I know that sounds crazy, but she became a real person to me, just like all the other women that we've studied, but she more so became a real human being to me, if that even makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, because it's easy to pick up the Bible and just look at it like a book of stories.
Yeah.
And it's historical facts. It's not a book of stories.
Right.
And so these people that ended up in this historical, factual book, they were real people. And that's what this season has really taught me, is that I'm sitting here reading a book. I mean, it's a children's Bible nonetheless, but I'm still reading this book, and it's about real people. And the question for me that has been screaming lately is, you're reading a historical fact about these women. What are people going to read about you, Lori? What kind of legacy are you leaving behind? And, Eve left a legacy. Sarah did. Elizabeth did. Mary left a legacy because she she walked the whole journey with her son. And then, we don't hear anything else about her after Pentecost. We don't know what happened with her. We know that John took care of her because when Jesus was on the cross, that was sealed. But Lori, what legacy are you leaving behind? What? So new year, new beginning. What are you going to do about it?
Wow.
I think he challenges.
Go ahead. Finish.
No, I was just going to say, I think he challenges all of us in so many different ways. And Mary shows me that first and foremost, it's okay to ponder things. And it is okay to say, God, I surrender to you. And it's also okay to say, hey, I failed today. I messed it up today. But she picked it up the next day. Because surrender is something you do every day. She did it his whole life. She surrendered his whole life every day.
And, and I guess to some extent, I always thought that, she had that relationship with God, but while raising Jesus, I kind of thought in my head, they had these, he kept giving her instructions. They had their everyday little conversation of, okay, this is what we got to cover with him. This is what we're going to do today or whatever. Why do we do that? But that's not really the case when you look at the fact that she took these events and pondered them and thought about them and mulled them over. And, I'm sure she had conversations with Joseph or, about these things. So I was like, she was constantly searching, just like we constantly search.
While she was raising other children.
Right. Jesus wasn't her only one. Right.
Who did not believe their brother was the Messiah. Imagine those dinner conversations. I want to ask her, I'm not going to lie, this cannot get by. When we get to heaven, I want to be like, did you ever tell any of them, when are you going to act like your brother? Can you please be obedient like your brother?
Can you clean up like your brother Jesus?
Well, can we add that to the list of things that she knows, what it feels like to have a child who doesn't believe?
Oh,
when I listed off those things a minute ago, I didn't catch that. Y'all, she even knows what it's like to have a prodigal.
Wow. And but she never gave up. If you think
she
about,
never gave up.
Wow, I never thought about that.
Y'all, if you've never really studied the Bible, I'm just going to be straight up, just like getting in the Word and being like, we're going to do a study. That is so not my walk with Christ. My walk with Christ is more centered around, oh, wow, I messed that up. God, could you teach me how not to do that again? And then I tend to make the same mistake, and then we eventually kind of catch on. But take a woman. Take a woman, and if I can encourage you to start with anybody, start with Mary, because y'all, this girl, the things that she will teach you and the road that she will go, because she literally is a good example of a woman who walked the walk.
Mm-hmm.
She walked the walk and she was honest.
Mm-hmm. As we have studied all these women, sometimes I feel less than because I'm a woman, So as we've done this study to realize the importance of each woman in this whole story of redemption played an important part. There were important lessons. There were important pieces that they played in this story that, means we're important too. You're important. You play a part. You're not less than. And that was a lesson for me as we've studied and as we're wrapping up the season, that we all have a purpose. You might know what your purpose is. I still don't know what my purpose is, but we all have a purpose, and, we're here to honor and glorify and give God the praise, and, and spread Jesus, birth and resurrection. I lost my train of thought, so y'all just bear with me. But, I don't know. These women have just taught me this season that just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I'm less than. Just because I'm a woman does not mean I don't have a part to play in kingdom building. Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that what I say is not important. I mean, because we circle back through all these women, I don't know. They
They
just
were
taught me a
all
lot.
pieces to the
Puzzle. Yes. Yes. And I don't want to diminish the men through the story. We can't, David and Samuel and Moses, that everybody had an important part. But for me, I've always thought, I don't know, I focused on that the men had the most important parts in the story of redemption. But I've learned through these 12 women, women had a big part in this redemption story too.